Good afternoon. Today we are going to do Aseret hadibrot, dibra 5 part 2. We're still dealing with the mitzvah of kivud avaim, honoring and respecting our parents. So yesterday was the lesson was to recap was about the mission, why the mitzvah of kivud avayim is so important, because parents have a mission of transmitting to their children and the children to their children and so on, about the mitzvot, about Matan Torah, about Yetziat Mitzrayim, and about keeping the mitzvot. So in today's lesson, and before I go any further, I want to dedicate this shiur for refuah shlema to Nahid Sarah bat Iran and Hayeled Rafael Chaim ben Sima Chasha, and Le'ilui Nishmat Nisim ben Yamna, Gracia bat Zahara, Yael bat Menucha Simcha, and Mazal bat Frida, She'anuchu beGan Eden. Now, yesterday, towards the end of the lesson, we spoke about the mission that parents have, and the obligation to teach their children about respect, honoring parents, and also about transmitting the Torah, transmitting our history. The same way as a child looks up to his parents, so to his children we look up to him. So however we respect and honor our parents, that's how our children will also honor and respect us. And this way, without this chain, this mission that parents have towards their children, that they have to teach them about Torah, about Yetziat Mitzrayim, about Matan Torah, about the mitzvot in general, and just to respect and honor them, as we said, because if we don't teach, if children are not taught to listen, and they're not going to listen to little things, they're not suddenly going to listen to whatever else we tell them. So without this transmission from generation to generation, then the bond, the chain of generation is broken. The Jewish past is lost for the future, because without the past there is no future. And the Jewish nation stops here, because the child doesn't believe, doesn't accept from the parents, and doesn't follow. That's it, and the child stops. Once a child stops from performing mitzvot, then there's no continuation. So that stops the Jewish nation from existing. In fact, that the fact that the fifth commandment, kabed et avicha ve'et imecha, honor your father and mother, is on the first tablets, right? And is part of the first 5 commandments. That shows the importance of honoring parents, how important it is. Therefore, the Torah says, kabed et avicha, respect, honor your father and mother, ve'et imecha, right, and your mother, lema'an ya'arichon yamecha, so that you will have a long life. Al adama asher Hashem Elokecha noten lach, and that is for you'll have a long life living in the land that Hashem is giving you. Before I forget, I also would like to wish Mazal Tov and bracha and hatzlacha שיזכו לבנות בית נאמן בישראל, to the Kala Liora, Batya, Batsara, and her Chatan, who are getting married. I believe it's today, and wish them hatzlacha. So, in general, honor should involve one's wealth, as it is written, honor with your wealth, me'odecha. One honors Hashem by giving tzedakah, by giving ma'aser, the 10th. Let's say I earn $100, so I have to give 10%, which is at least $10 for tzedakah. So too, it's not enough to honor one's parents with word alone. It's not enough. One must also give them money if they need it, and if one can financially afford it. When parents grow old and they become a burden to their children, and constantly as they ask for things, just like a young child, a small child, Hashem warns us not to get tired of our parents, because it's easy to get tired of parents, and we should not look at them as a burden to us. And here, Chacham Ovadia Yosef brought this story, and which is written in the Gemara. There is a man who was very, very, very wealthy, and this man, he had a child. His father lived with his family, lived at home with him, and as the father was growing old, he became clumsy, would spill his drinks, his food would be like there would be a whole mess on the floor and on the table or around him, and slowly the son was losing patience with his father, to the point that one day the son told his father, leave the house, I don't want you, you're too much of a burden for me, leave the house. Unfortunately, the father had nowhere else to go, so he lived on the street, and he was just asking for people, for donations, for him to be able to buy some food. Time passed by, and one day the son, who had the children of his own, let's call the son Abraham, just for make it easier. So this Abraham, who had thrown his father out, he had a son, let's call him Yosef. And one day this little Yosef was walking down the street, and he saw an old man who looked really terrible, bones, and his feet, his shoes were torn, his clothing were torn. He felt so bad, and he said, I have to give him some money. And he had some money in his pocket, and he went closer to put the money into the cup. But as he got closer, he realized that this is my grandfather. He was so hurt, he was in tears, and he ran from the shock, just ran all the way home. When he got home, his father happened to be at home. Told him, Abba, I have to tell you something. What is it? Said, look, I was on the street. I told him what happened. And he said, grandfather looks so bad. So the father said, Abraham said, okay, you know what? Go up into the attic. In the attic, I have on the hook, I have an old coat hanging there. So go take it and give it to him. Give it to your grandfather, so at least he's not going to be cold. The child goes up, but the child still was upset. He didn't feel that was enough. He really wanted to bring back his grandfather home. How was he going to achieve that? So what did he do? He went upstairs. And sure enough, on the hook was his father's old coat. It was still in good condition, but still, it hurt the child. Little Yosef said, what am I going to do? How can I tell my father to bring back my grandfather? Then he had an idea. he took scissors and he cut the coat into half, into two pieces. And the father was downstairs and was waiting. Why is he taking so long? Because, Yosef, are you coming down? What's going on? What are you doing? Finally, Yosef comes down and he's holding two pieces, one piece on each arm. His father says, what is this? He said, yeah, here, this is a coat that you told me. I found it, so I cut it into half. Half I'm going to give you to Grandpa now, and the other half I'm going to keep it for you. The father was shocked. For me? But then he realized and he understood the lesson that his son was trying to teach him. And he says, no, my son, no, this is no good. This won't do. Come show me where your grandfather is. Then he went and he brought his grandfather home. And this time he had learned his lesson. This time he really took care of his father and honored him and could not stop asking for forgiveness because he had realized what a big mistake this had been. The Torah, when we have these stories that I tell you, they're all true stories. And when I tell them to you is because there's definitely a lesson to be taught, a lesson to be learned from it. And we can never do enough. Never. So the Torah says, "Lema'an yarichun yamecha al adama asher Hashem Elokecha noten lach," that for you to have a long life in the land that Hashem is giving you. So here we have an explanation. From the Mamlo, it says like this: the land used to belong to Canaan. And Canaan was the grandson of Noah. Hashem took it away from him, from Canaan, because he did not show proper respect to his grandfather, to Noah. And Noah had cursed him. What was the curse? That that Canaan should be a slave of slaves, him and his descendants and his children. Now Canaan, the land of Canaan, the land was given the name of Canaan, right? He had a brother called Mitzrayim, and the land where the brother lived is called Mitzrayim, Egypt. So Mitzrayim was the name of his brother, and Ben Israel went down to Mitzrayim and they became slaves. Then they came out and then they went into Eretz Canaan, the land of Canaan. What happened to Canaan? Either they were either destroyed, killed in the wars, or they became slaves to slaves. Became slaves to the Jews who had been slaves. So we see that really the curse did take place. We also learn, the Gemara and the Chachamim explain to us that Esav was a Rasha. But there's one lesson we could learn from Esav. And this lesson is honoring parents. Esav was extremely, extremely careful to honor his father. In fact, Esav had a very special coat, and I'm going to explain to you about this coat. When Hashem created Adam, after the creation of Adam, Hashem told Adam, all the animals are going to come. They're going to come to you. You name them. So each animal that came, Adam would look at the animal. His chokhmah was something unbelievable. And he would look at the animal. He would, just by looking at the animal, he was able to actually see the characteristic of this animal. And he gave them name. The lion was called the lion. The hamor was called the hamor. Each animal was given a name that fitted him. The hamor is the donkey. That coat was very special. It had the smell of Gan Eden, and on it were pictures of animals, so that when the animals came to Adam, they were tamed. So this coat was very, very special. This coat was passed down until Abraham, to Noah, sorry, not to Abraham, to Noah. From Noah, then Canaan had stole it, stole this coat, special coat, until it came to Nimrod. Nimrod was a king. He was a king who was trying to kill Abraham, and Nimrod had this coat. When he wore it, if the person who was wearing was a tzaddik, so you could smell the Gan Eden, the smell of Gan Eden was a smell that was unbelievable, best perfume ever. But if the person who was wearing was a rasha, there was no smell at all. But it did have an effect when going hunting. So Nimrod, when he went hunting, he was able to hunt very easily because he was wearing that coat, and the animals just became tame, and it was easier for him to hunt. So that was a very special coat. Esav knew about this coat, and he knew that Nimrod had it. So one day, and it happened to be actually the day that Abraham died, but very early in the morning, Esav had gone to the fields, to the forest, very early. He knew that Nimrod would be in a certain part of the forest, and he went behind him, and he was tracking him until he found Nimrod on his own. He surprised Nimrod, killed him, took the coat, and ran away. He brought the coat to his mother, and he kept it by his mother, not by his wife's, because he did not trust his wife. But he knew that his mother would keep it for him. And Yaakov wore this coat when his mother said to Yaakov, "Go and bring the food I prepared for your father, so your father will bless you." So when Yaakov was wearing the coat, the smell of Gan Eden was there. And Yitzhak was so surprised. "Re'eh beni," he said, "look, my son, re'ach re'ach hasadeh asher beracho Hashem." I can smell the smell of the field of Gan Eden that Hashem has blessed. So Esav used to put this coat on whenever he would come and do things for his father. He would serve his father. Go fetch me this, or sit down and just have a discussion with his father. That's when he would wear it. And when he would go hunting, would go places, he would never, ever wear it. That was a very big, big zechut for Esav. We know that Amalek is a grandson of Esav. Haman, from the story of Purim, is a great, 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 great grandson of Esav. This zechut, this merit that Esav had, because he respected so much his father, stood by Esav for a very, very long time. Very, very long time. Because this is a mitzvah that is so hard to fulfill. So in the story of Purim, when we have Haman, who had that zechut still from Esav, Hashem had to find someone who was equal to him, equal to Haman in the sense of having a zechut. But since this is such a hard and difficult mitzvah to fulfill, it was very hard to find someone Who did Hashem find? And this is also what Chacham Ovadia Yosef said. Who did Hashem find to save Ben Israel? Esther. Only Esther could be the one who could save Ben Israel. Why Esther? You see, when Esther's mother was pregnant, Esther's father passed away. So when Esther was born, she was an orphan from her father. Then shortly after the birth, her mother also passed away. So now Esther was an orphan from both parents. Because she was orphan from both parents, it means that she could not fulfill this mitzvah. It means she was not lacking in that mitzvah. Anyone who would be lacking in the mitzvah of kivud avaim could not save Ben Israel. So who was able to save Ben Israel? Only Esther HaMalka. Only Esther HaMalka. So I'm going to have to stop here. There's maybe a third or maybe a fourth part to this dibra. I'm going to stop here. So may Hashem help us to fulfill this mitzvah, even though parents, for some of us, have already passed away. We still honor them by doing the right things, by doing mitzvot on their names. So may Hashem help us to be able to fulfill this mitzvah 100%. And may Hashem bless us with bracha, hatzlacha, parnasa tova, bריאות, nachat, shalom, simcha, and zivugim.